Listen carefully. Right now, in this exact moment, you're making a critical error. You think preparation equals accumulation. Skills, gear, knowledge, supplies. Stack them high enough and you're safe, right? Wrong. Catastrophically wrong. You're building a museum of competence that's about to become a mausoleum of irrelevance. Here's what the preparedness industry won't tell you because it destroys their business model. Every specific skill you master, every specialized tool you collect, every scenario you meticulously plan for creates a psychological dependency that will become a survival liability when reality refuses to follow your script. You're not building resilience. You're building elaborate fragility disguised as strength. We're not discussing water filtration methods or which freeze-dried meals taste least like cardboard. We're deconstructing the singular cognitive framework that determines whether you adopt and persist, or whether you become another cautionary tale about the person who had everything except the one thing that actually matters. The survivors you need to study aren't the ones who prepared the best. They're the ones who abandoned their preparations fastest when those preparations stopped serving them. That distinction is everything. That distinction is what we're building here. Your comfortable assumptions end now. Your expensive expertise gets interrogated now. Your carefully constructed plans get stress tested against the one variable you keep ignoring. You don't get to choose which disaster arrives or how it unfolds. You only get to choose whether your mind can function when your plans become instantly obsolete. Let's begin the real education, the one that makes everything else optional.
Section 1. The 4 expertise traps nobody mentions. Trap 1. The mechanic's beautiful prison. You're exceptional with engines. You speak fluent machinery. Fuel systems, electrical diagnostics, transmission architecture, it's your second language. You can diagnose problems by sound alone. Outstanding. You've just chained yourself to technology that requires global supply chains spanning 17 countries and 6 continents. Let's examine the actual mathematics of modern mechanical complexity. Average contemporary vehicle contains approximately 75 microprocessors, 75 separate computer systems communicating across multiple networks, each monitoring everything from oxygen ratios to tire pressure differentials. Fuel injection calibrated to nanometer precision, emission systems requiring specific catalyst materials, sensors measuring parameters you didn't know existed. It's magnificent engineering. It's also catastrophically fragile in ways your expertise makes invisible to you. That deep knowledge you cultivated, it functions perfectly until a single proprietary sensor fails. Then you possess perfect knowledge of exactly why something doesn't work and zero capability to fix it. The chip controlling your fuel injection was manufactured in Taiwan using lithography equipment from Netherlands with materials sourced from 14 different countries. That supply chain? Not operational anymore. That gasket requires synthetic elastomers from petrochemical refineries running at specific temperatures and pressures. Those facilities went dark. That replacement part requires CNC machining to tolerances measured in microns. That precision disappeared with electrical grid stability. Your sophisticated expertise just transformed into the ability to perfectly diagnose problems you cannot solve. You're a surgeon without instruments, a pilot without aircraft, a concert pianist whose piano has no strings. The knowledge remains, the application context vanished. Meanwhile, the 1952 farm tractor with mechanical everything, zero electronics, cast iron components you can literally weld back together with basic equipment, fuel injection you can adjust with a wrench and mechanical intuition, cooling system that's just liquid moving through metal passages, no computers, no sensors, no proprietary anything, just principles, leverage, and material properties. Your advanced mechanical expertise is absolutely valid for the wrong timeline. You optimized for complexity. Survival rewards simplicity. The skill you actually need isn't master diagnostician of integrated systems. It's adaptive improviser who understands core mechanical principles and can apply them to whatever materials remain available. That's not the skill you trained. That's why it's a trap. Trap 2. The navigator's fatal precision. Your land navigation is immaculate. Topographic maps are your native language. You can calculate distances, plot routes, read terrain features like text on a page. You can shoot accurate azimuths in zero visibility conditions. You've memorized coordinate systems and datum conversions. Beautiful skill set, completely orthogonal to the actual survival problem. Navigation answers one question: where am I going? Survival demands a completely different question: where are the threats relative to resources, and how are both changing over time? You can plot the perfect route to a water source using terrain analysis and optimal energy expenditure calculations. That route crosses through territory controlled by a group that's extremely protective of resources and views newcomers as threats requiring immediate response. Your excellent navigation just efficiently delivered you to the exact wrong place with maximum speed and zero intelligence. Think about what maps actually show you: elevation contours, water features, vegetation types, infrastructure locations as of the last survey date. Everything that was cartographically relevant during stable times. Maps show geology. They don't show sociology. They display elevation. They don't display desperation levels. They indicate water sources. They don't indicate which water sources are contested zones versus accessible resources. Post-collapse geography is fundamentally about flow patterns, not fixed features. Where are people moving? Why? Where are resources concentrated? Which concentrations are stable versus fragmenting? Where are groups cohesive versus fragmenting? Where are areas abandoned not because they lack resources, but because they contain dangers that don't appear on topographic surveys? Contamination zones, unexploded ordnance, structural instability, territorial boundaries enforced with violence, disease outbreak areas, radiation hotspots, chemical hazards. None of that is on your map. All of that is more important than the terrain features you've mastered. The advanced skill isn't plotting accurate courses. It's intelligence gathering before movement. It's pattern recognition over precision. It's understanding that the safest path is frequently the longest path, and the shortest path is often a trap specifically designed for people who trust their technical navigation skills over their situational awareness. Your navigation excellence makes you confident. Confidence without current intelligence makes you predictable. Predictability makes you a target. The trap is thinking precision equals safety, when precision might equal walking into an ambush with excellent posture and accurate pace counting.
Trap 3, the farmer's 6-month target window. You're an agriculture expert. Permaculture design, companion planting, soil building, seed genetics, seasonal timing, crop rotation. You understand the complete regenerative cycle. You can look at land and see future food systems. Spectacular knowledge. You've also just committed to being exactly one location for a minimum 6-month duration, while sending up signals that say, valuable accumulating resources located here. Please visit during harvest season. Let's discuss the actual mathematics that nobody wants to examine. Agriculture is humanity's foundation, civilization's bedrock, our species' signature achievement. It's also the post-collapse equivalent of installing a beacon that broadcasts your position while simultaneously reducing your mobility to zero and creating a fixed asset worth taking by force. Every seed planted represents a promise, a commitment, a guarantee that you'll be present, vulnerable, and defending that specific position when the plant matures. Every sprouting crop is visible evidence of investment, effort, and future yield. You're not just growing food. You're advertising someone here had surplus resources to plant, surplus security to defend, and will have concentrated nutrition at predictable future date. The energy economics get brutal faster than the growing season. Calories expended preparing soil, planting, weeding, watering, defending. Calories yielded months later after successful defense against environmental threats and human threats. The energy that you're operating under until first harvest, the defensive requirements for a fixed, known position, the vulnerability window measured in months while you're location-locked and resource-committed. First-year farming in unstable conditions isn't feeding yourself. It's creating a resource cache with a maturity timer that anyone with basic observational skills can calculate. You're essentially building a vault with a time lock, then advertising the unlock date, then trying to defend it with depleted energy reserves because you spent all your calories building the vault. Your agricultural knowledge remains completely valid. The application timing is everything. You don't initiate agriculture until you've established security, community, surplus defensive capacity, and verified territorial stability. Early-stage survival and established farming are different operational phases requiring completely different strategic priorities. The sophisticated operator understands that knowledge has correct application windows. Farming too early makes you a fixed target. Farming too late means you missed seasonal windows and face starvation before next opportunity. The skill isn't just growing food. It's knowing precisely when growing food serves survival versus when it compromises it. That's strategic timing, not agricultural knowledge. Different domain entirely. Trap 4. The craftsman's caloric deficit. You can forge tools. You can repair metals. You can create functional implements from scrap materials. You understand metallurgy, heat treatment, proper tempering. Tremendous capability. Every hammer strike costs approximately 300 calories. Heating metal to working temperature, substantially more. Your advanced skills demand energy expenditure that starvation economics fundamentally will not support. Let's examine the actual thermodynamics. Heating steel to working temperature, roughly 1200 degrees Celsius, requires massive sustained energy input. Whether that's charcoal, wood, coal, whatever fuel source you're using, you're converting stored energy into heat at rates that dwarf almost any other survival activity. Then the actual forging work, repeated high-force hammer strikes, upper body muscular effort at maximum intensity for sustained periods, precision work requiring focus, which has its own caloric cost. You've become simultaneously valuable and unsustainable, a luxury good in a poverty economy. Every community needs your capabilities. They need them more than they'll be able to afford to feed you the massive caloric input your work requires. Your expensive infrastructure that produces essential output but consumes limited resources at rates that create difficult allocation decisions. The mathematics are unforgiving. Average adult requires roughly 2,000 calories daily just for baseline metabolic function. Physical labor adds substantially to that. Heavy, sustained labor, like blacksmithing, can push requirements above 4,000 calories daily in collapse conditions where everyone's operating on calorie deficit, where food is the ultimate limiting resource. You're demanding twice the input of a standard community member while producing output that's essential but not immediately consumable. You become valuable but expensive. That's a dangerous category, too useful to ignore, too costly to maintain long-term. Groups will want your skills. They'll want them more than they'll want to allocate the food required to keep you functional. That creates tension, resentment, and eventually exploitation. Work until your body fails from sustained energy deficit, then become expendable. The pattern keeps repeating across all 4 traps. The more sophisticated your specialization, the more it depends on contextual conditions that no longer exist. You've optimized for a world that stopped. You're a specialist in obsolete contexts. The ultimate survivor isn't the master of one sophisticated skill. They're the rapid switcher between multiple basic skills based on constantly updated cost-benefit survival calculations that factor in energy availability, risk levels, resource access, and timing windows. We need something fundamentally different than specific skills. We need the meta framework that determines when to use which skills, when to abandon them completely, and how to construct new approaches from first principles when existing skills become contextually irrelevant.
Section 2, the Cognitive Operating System Upgrade. Here's the central revelation. The master skill is radical adaptability, not the corporate seminar version about embracing change or being flexible. We're discussing a pre-programmed psychological response framework that runs constant real-time calculations across every survival domain simultaneously, updating priorities based on changing conditions and generating novel solutions when established approaches fail. This isn't something you perform occasionally. It's something you become permanently. It's the difference between owning tools versus being a solution generation system. Your consciousness becomes the universal adapter. Everything else becomes situational attachments you engage or disengage based on calculated utility. Most people think adaptability means willing to try different things. That's not adaptability. That's just indecision with better marketing. Real radical adaptability is a structured cognitive architecture that operates like an advanced operating system running multiple calculation threads simultaneously, prioritizing resources, identifying threats, recognizing opportunities, and generating action plans faster than conscious deliberation can process. Let's build that operating system, layer by layer.
Cognitive Protocol 1, the Utility Decoding Matrix. First, fundamental mental transformation, complete rewiring of value perception systems.
Society spent decades training you to see objects through layers of cultural meaning, original purpose, monetary value, aesthetic judgment, social status signaling. All of that becomes instantly irrelevant. You need pure utility vision that sees only functional potential. This is deeper than thinking creatively about uses for objects. This is systematic cognitive reprocessing that breaks every object down to elemental components and reconstructs value based purely on immediate survival problems requiring solutions. Highway sign? Your conditioned brain sees directional infrastructure, maybe mild nostalgia for functional road systems. Your upgraded brain sees flat, weatherproof metal with reflective coating, solar concentrator for heating, cutting into armor segments for protection, angling for rain collection with built-in runoff direction, sheet metal for construction, reflective material for signaling, mounting hardware that's pre-drilled, multiple resources in a single sign. Abandoned car battery, conditioned response, hazardous waste, environmental contamination, something to avoid. Upgraded response, lead plates for radiation shielding or fishing weights, sulfuric acid for chemical processes, heavy plastic casing for waterproof container construction, copper cable, battery acid for etching or pH applications, separators for filtration material. 6 completely different resources in one used battery. Broken microwave in a dumpster. Conditioned, trash, broken appliance, worthless. Upgraded, magnetron for generating targeted microwave radiation. Copper wiring, sheet metal panels, screws and fasteners, glass plate, metal mesh screen for filtration or shielding, transformer for electrical applications, plastic housing material. 8 separate resources that most people will walk past while searching for resources. This is cognitive chemistry. Every object undergoes mental decomposition into constituent elements, then reconstruction based on current problem requirements. The United States and most developed nations are essentially massive distributed material storage facilities, billions of tons of processed, refined, manufactured resources just existing in abandoned structures, failed infrastructure, discarded equipment, but only if you can see them correctly. Most people will experience resource scarcity surrounded by abundance because their categorization system still runs on original function protocols. Their brain sees broken refrigerator and stops processing. Your upgraded brain sees insulation material, copper tubing, steel cabinet, compressor motor, electrical components, shelving, door hinges, gasket material, lighting elements. 10 different resource categories in one broken appliance. Scavenger vision isn't opportunistic thinking. It's systematic cognitive reprocessing that runs automatically, constantly, everywhere you look. You're running permanent background calculations. What is this object actually composed of? What are the material properties? Which current survival problems do those properties address? What's the extraction cost versus utility gained? Value becomes completely fluid. Purpose becomes entirely improvised because material scarcity stops governing your decisions, because everything becomes potentially useful once you decode it correctly. The advanced application extends beyond objects to landscapes and structures. That abandoned warehouse isn't old building. It's insulation material in the walls, structural steel in the frame, copper wiring throughout the electrical system, potentially intact plumbing, elevation advantage for security sightlines, roof materials, foundation materials, intact glass, door hardware, ventilation systems, maybe remaining tools or equipment. Every structure becomes a complex resource node, not just a location. This cognitive upgrade transforms how you move through space. You're not just navigating, you're constantly scanning, evaluating, categorizing, prioritizing. Your environmental awareness becomes 3-dimensional resource mapping that updates in real time as you move and as your needs change.
Cognitive Protocol 2, Emotional Quarantine Architecture. Second fundamental transformation, strategic psychological compartmentalization. Not suppression, which eventually explodes. Not denial, which creates detachment from reality. Tactical emotional processing that prevents operational paralysis while maintaining psychological integrity long term. Collapse conditions generate trauma at industrial scale and velocity. Loss happens constantly. Horror becomes routine. Situations occur that fundamentally should not occur. If you process these experiences with full emotional bandwidth in real time, cognitive function collapses under the load. Grief becomes tactical paralysis. Fear becomes decision-making poison. Moral injury becomes identity crisis at the worst possible moment. Emotional quarantine protocol isn't sociopathy or emotional numbing. It's deliberate psychological triage based on survival critical timing. You acknowledge the emotion immediately. Suppression creates delayed psychological debt that compounds with interest. You containerize it using specific mental protocols. You schedule when you'll process it. You return to your task. Start with minor frustrations. Build the neural pathway. Scale up gradually. By the time you need the skill under actual crisis pressure, the pathway is established and automatic. The formula: feel later, calculate now, persist first, process when safe. This prevents the psychological breakdown cascade that occurs when comfort infrastructure vanishes. Modern culture extensively trained immediate emotional processing. Talk about feelings, validate emotions, process trauma through extended discussion and therapeutic frameworks. All completely valid during stability, all catastrophic during crisis when time, safety, and mental bandwidth are limited resources requiring strategic allocation. You don't have capacity for extended grief processing when your water supply just became contaminated and you have 6 hours to locate, verify, and secure alternative sources before dehydration impacts decision-making. You don't have bandwidth for trauma integration when your shelter is compromised and you need to relocate before exposure creates medical crisis. The emotional debt doesn't disappear. It accumulates in the containment system, but you control the payment schedule based on survival calculus, not emotional urgency. The sophisticated application: you replace hope-based thinking with calculated action frameworks. Hope creates expectations, expectations create disappointment, disappointment creates despair spirals that consume psychological resources. You don't hope water is clean, you test it through available methods. You treat it using appropriate processes, or you find different water. Action removes uncertainty. Uncertainty is where false hope lives and where psychological collapse breeds. Your operational state becomes cold focus, not rage, which clouds judgment, not numbness, which disconnects you from necessary emotional information. Emotionally neutral problem solving with maximum stakes. Every challenge becomes a puzzle requiring solution. Your feelings about the puzzle become data inputs, not decision makers. You become optimized for survival calculus where emotions inform but don't command. The training protocol for this? Practice containment during non-crisis stress. Something frustrating happens, you feel the emotion, you acknowledge it explicitly, you imagine placing it in a mental container with a specific label. You schedule when you'll process it, you return to your task. Start with minor frustrations. Build the neural pathway. Scale up gradually. By the time you need the skill under actual crisis pressure, the pathway is established and automatic.
Section 3. The Human Complexity Layer. Advanced Application Social Intelligence as Survival Infrastructure. Now we reach genuinely advanced difficulty, other humans, the most complex, dangerous, necessary, and unpredictable element in any survival scenario. Radical adaptability applied to social dynamics determines whether you transition from solo survivor into community asset or into cautionary tale that others reference as warning. American culture extensively celebrates individualism. Post-collapse reality absolutely demands community for long-term survival while simultaneously making every human interaction potentially catastrophic. You need the capacity to assess intent in seconds, negotiate without emotional investment, recognize when alignment serves you versus when disappearing serves you better, read group dynamics, identify power structures, predict behavior under stress. This is reading microexpressions, vocal stress patterns, body language incongruence, group dynamics, power structures, desperation indicators, while your conscious mind maintains normal conversation. Your background cognitive processes run constant threat assessment, value calculation, reliability estimation, exit strategy planning simultaneously. You're operating at multiple levels of awareness at once. The most dangerous element in wasteland conditions isn't weapons, it's people you can't read, someone whose intent is opaque, whose motivations are unclear, whose next action you cannot predict with reasonable accuracy.
That opacity equals threat because you can't calculate appropriate response without understanding intent. Your adaptability must extend to human systems, or those systems will rapidly neutralize you. You're constantly running calculations. Is this group stable or showing fragmentation signs? Is this person's desperation level sustainable or approaching critical action threshold? Does this community's resource base actually support their population, or are they operating on deficit heading toward internal collapse? Who holds actual power versus who holds title? Where are the fracture points? What are the unspoken rules versus stated rules? Who's valuable versus who's vulnerable? This isn't manipulation or exploitation. This is survival-grade social intelligence. You're not trying to control people. You're identifying which human systems are stable enough to integrate with versus which are traps with friendly faces. Collapse strips away social pretense rapidly. Desperation makes people calculable if you know what signs to read. You become fluent in desperation mathematics and stability indicators. The sophisticated operator understands groups are survival multipliers and threat multipliers simultaneously. The skill is determining which effect dominates in which specific group before committing. Some communities elevate everyone through cooperation and resource sharing. Some consume their own members through internal competition and scarcity thinking. Reading the difference before full commitment is the meta skill that determines long-term survival trajectory. Warning signs of unstable groups, leadership that demands unquestioning obedience, resource distribution that's extremely uneven without clear merit-based reasoning, people who speak in fearful whispers, absence of laughter or casual social interaction, everyone seems exhausted beyond physical labor requirements, high turnover, people keep leaving, defensive structures pointed inward as much as outward, rules that keep changing without clear pattern. Positive signs of stable groups, transparent decision-making processes, resource distribution that is equitable with clear contribution-based variations, people who disagree openly without fear, presence of humor even during difficulty, energy levels match workload reasonably, low turnover, people stay voluntarily, defensive structures focused outward, consistent rules that make obvious sense. Your social intelligence determines which communities you approach versus avoid, when to reveal capabilities versus appear unremarkable, when to contribute versus when to conserve resources, when integration serves you versus when independence serves you better.
Section 4. The Practical Training Architecture. 3 immediately actionable exercises, plus advanced variations to construct genuine radical adaptability. Exercise 1. The 10-minute contingency cascade drill. Create a detailed plan for tomorrow. Anything. Meal preparation, equipment repair, travel route, skill practice session. Spend 10 minutes making it comprehensive and solid. Then eliminate the single most critical resource that plan requires. Completely gone. Immediately generate Plan B using only remaining resources. Give yourself 3 minutes. Then eliminate that most critical resource from Plan B. Generate Plan C in 2 minutes. Eliminate that critical resource. Generate Plan D in 90 seconds. Repeat this pattern until your brain automatically generates contingency plans as fast as primary plans. The goal is making backup planning reflexive, not reactive. You're training your mind to see multiple solution paths simultaneously and maintain that multi-path awareness constantly. Advanced variation. Do this drill with a partner who eliminates resources randomly and watches your solution generation speed. Add time pressure, add distraction, add physical discomfort. Train the skill under degraded conditions because that's when you'll need it most. Exercise 2. Cross-domain skill construction protocol. Identify your primary expertise domain. Now learn something completely orthogonal from a fundamentally different domain. Engineer, learn fermentation chemistry and food preservation. Medical professional, learn basic carpentry and construction. Tactical background, learn textile repair and fiber processing. Agricultural expert, learn basic electrical systems and power generation. The goal isn't becoming expert in the secondary skill, it's forcing your brain to build completely new problem-solving neural pathways that access different solution libraries. Adaptability requires cognitive flexibility. Specialization creates cognitive rigidity. Cross-training rewires your mental operating system to access broader solution spaces and recognize patterns across domains. Spend minimum 30 minutes weekly on your orthogonal skill. Document what you learn. Notice when insights from one domain apply to problems in another domain. That cross-domain pattern recognition is what you're actually building. Advanced variation. Learn 3 orthogonal skills simultaneously. Rotate between them. Notice how each one influences your thinking in the others. The goal is creating a highly interconnected knowledge network rather than isolated skill silos.
Exercise 3, the Resource Restriction Challenge. Weekly, commit to completing a necessary task, but ban yourself from using your preferred modern tool or standard method. Need to start fire? No lighter, no matches, no ferro rod if that's your standard. Need to prepare food? No stove, no microwave, no standard cooking method. Need to repair something? No power tools, no specialized instruments. Need to purify water? No commercial filter, no tablets. Force pure improvisation from first principles. This builds the psychological muscle that sees alternative solutions automatically. It trains your brain to route around missing resources reflexively rather than becoming paralyzed by absence of preferred tools. Keep a log of what you tried, what worked, what failed, what you learned. Review the log monthly. You're building a personal library of improvised solutions that becomes accessible under stress. Advanced variation, do restriction challenges under time pressure. Add secondary restrictions, ban from using certain material categories, combine with physical challenges like wearing thick gloves or working in low light. Stack difficulty deliberately because real scenarios won't be convenient. Exercise 4, the Value Inversion Protocol. Weekly, select an object most people consider worthless, literal trash, broken equipment, discarded materials. Spend 5 focused minutes identifying minimum 10 different survival applications for it. Force your brain to see utility where conditioning sees waste. Broken umbrella, fabric for water collection, wire ribs for snare components, handle for tool extension, metal tips for fishing hooks, fabric for filtration, wire for binding, handle for weapon grip, fabric for bandage material, ribs for structural reinforcement, tips for puncture tools. You're directly building scavenger vision through repetition. The neural pathway strengthens each time you do this exercise. Eventually, it becomes automatic background processing that runs constantly. Advanced variation, do this in teams. Compare results, learn from others' perspectives, teach someone else this skill. Teaching forces you to articulate the thought process, which strengthens your own pathway. These aren't preparedness exercises you do occasionally. They're cognitive architecture renovation you do systematically. You're deliberately building new thinking patterns that override decades of cultural conditioning. Most human brains are optimized for convenience and efficiency within stable systems. You're rebuilding yours for effectiveness within chaotic systems where convenience is irrelevant and efficiency means something completely different. Section 5, the ultimate framework integration. Here's the operational truth that changes everything. Master a specific tool and the tool can fail, become unavailable, or simply become irrelevant when conditions change. Master radical adaptability and you become the tool. You become the solution generator. You become the master variable in survival equations, regardless of what specific conditions manifest. The collapse doesn't start when power grids fail or supply chains break. It starts when your mind locks onto one solution, one approach, one skill set, and refuses to pivot when reality shifts. Mental rigidity is the actual existential threat. Cognitive flexibility is the only genuinely renewable resource that cannot be depleted, confiscated, or destroyed. Your gear will break eventually. Physics guarantees it. Your food will run out. Mathematics guarantees it. Your shelter will become compromised. Entropy guarantees it. Your community will face crisis. Human nature guarantees it. Your carefully constructed plans will encounter reality's sense of humor. Murphy's Law guarantees it. None of that determines your survival outcome if your mind remains fluid, calculating, and relentlessly adaptive. You don't prepare for collapse by stockpiling or training alone. You prepare through fundamental psychological restructuring that transforms how you process reality. Your brain becomes an endless library of potential solutions, constantly indexed, instantly accessible, ruthlessly prioritized by survival mathematics that updates in real time. The greatest preparedness enthusiasts still fail because they prepared for specific scenarios. If X happens, I'll do Y. The problem is X never happens exactly as modeled. Reality generates Z, which requires completely different response. Their preparation becomes psychological burden because they keep trying to force their prepared scenario onto incompatible reality. Ultimate survivors persist because they prepared cognitive flexibility for any scenario. They didn't master specific situations. They mastered the psychological operating system that processes any situation, recognizes patterns, generates novel solutions, and pivots instantly when approaches stop working. Think about actual historical survivors across various disasters, collapses, wars, famines, displacements. The common factor isn't superior preparation, it's adaptive capacity. People who abandon plans that stopped working, who learn new skills mid-crisis, who saw opportunities where others saw only obstacles, who pivoted their entire approach when circumstances demanded it, who adapted their psychology faster than their circumstances deteriorated. That's not luck, that's not accident, that's not random chance. That's radical adaptability in action, whether they called it that or not. The distinction between survivor and casualty often comes down to psychological flexibility versus psychological rigidity. The person who insists, "This is how you do X," versus the person who asks, "Given current conditions, what's the best available approach to achieving outcome X?" Same goal, completely different mental framework.
Section 6, the choice architecture. So here's your immediate choice point. Either you start constructing these cognitive systems now, building mental architecture while you still have margin for error, resources for practice, and time for development, or you wait until crisis forces it and discover that brains don't construct new architecture under extreme duress. They just fragment into old patterns that no longer serve. The wasteland doesn't grade on potential. It doesn't accept effort as substitute for results. It doesn't care about intentions. It accepts adaptability, or it takes everything else. Your move. The world as you know it, already transforming. Look at supply chain fragility. Look at infrastructure degradation. Look at social cohesion metrics. Look at resource competition intensifying. Look at climate patterns shifting. Look at political stability indicators. The comfortable systems you depend on already destabilizing in slow motion. The question isn't whether significant disruption arrives. The question is whether the cognitive operating system you're building can function effectively in what comes next. Because it's coming. Some version of it, some intensity of it, some specific form you probably can't predict, ready or not, adapted or obsolete. You can keep perfecting individual skills. Nothing wrong with that. Skills have value. But understand the hierarchy. You're building tools for a toolbox. What we discussed here, this is building the hands that use the tools, the mind that selects which tool, the judgment that knows when to abandon the toolbox entirely and construct something new from scratch using first principles. Every expert was once a beginner, true, but not every expert becomes an adapter. Expertise can calcify into orthodoxy. This is the correct way becomes this is the only way I can conceive. Mastery can become prison. The truly dangerous survivor isn't the one who knows everything about something. It's the one who can learn anything, abandon everything, and reconstruct functional solutions from whatever remains available. That's the algorithm. That's the operating system. That's the actual master skill that makes every other skill situational rather than absolute. Everything else you've learned remains valuable, but now you have the framework that determines when, where, how, and whether to apply it. You have the meta skill that makes every other skill contextual instead of dogmatic. Welcome to adaptive survival. Everything before this moment was preparation for preparation. Now the actual work begins. The collapse isn't coming like a discrete event you'll recognize. It's already here, moving in slow motion across multiple domains simultaneously, giving you time to adapt if you choose to see it and act on what you see. Most won't. Most will wait for obvious crisis before attempting transformation. By then, the cognitive flexibility required for effective adaptation becomes exponentially harder to develop under pressure, fear, and resource scarcity. You have the blueprint now, you have the framework, you have the training protocols, you have the conceptual architecture. What you do with them determines everything that follows. The wasteland doesn't ask permission, it doesn't wait for readiness declarations, it doesn't care about your timeline. It simply arrives and sorts the adapted from the obsolete with absolute efficiency and zero sentiment. Be the algorithm, be the adapter, be the one who transforms faster than circumstances deteriorate. That's not just survival, that's mastery of the only skill that can't become obsolete because it's the skill of becoming whatever the moment requires. Context changes constantly, resources deplete inevitably, systems collapse eventually, but the mind that can adapt to any context, work with any resources, and construct new systems from first principles, that remains valuable regardless of which specific future actually manifests. That's the ultimate survival skill. Everything else was just practice for this choice point. Your move. The clock's running, whether you acknowledge it or not.